Evening, everyone. I'm Rob with MMORPGcom. Tonight I have with me Todd Carson, Senior Producer on Dragon's Prophet, and I have Merv LeQuai, who is Project Manager, and for tonight only, Tour Bus Driver. Evening, guys.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm well. How are you?
We're doing good. We're doing good.
For those of you guys that are going to watch this later on YouTube, this is actually the second take. We had a little issue with XSplit beforehand, so we did about 10 minutes of this. So if it sounds a little canned at the beginning, it's because we already did it once. So we are in the Juno Crystal, I'm missing part of it, I know it.
Juno Crystal Gallery.
Juno Crystal Gallery, it's right down there on the map. I guess I should have just read that. This is around a level 40-ish to 45 dungeon in Dragon's Prophet. We're a few pools into it. We haven't gone to any of the mini-bosses yet. At the very beginning, we picked up 3 quests to go and kill some named dragons in here. We talked about some of the different dragons we had. And now I'll let Todd tell you about some of the things that SOE's been working on since we last saw the game at E3 to today.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Rob.
You're welcome.
Let's move on with some combat here, and we can chat while we're playing.
Sounds great.
Yeah. So we've been working. What we were talking about is that RuneWaker is the developer for the game. So I just want to make sure everyone knows that RuneWaker, based out of Taiwan, and they are also the creators of Runes of Magic. And we've actually had a really good working relationship with them. There's certainly a time difference, so I find myself getting on Skype every night around 6 o'clock. So this is actually familiar territory for me.
That's good.
So I'm used to pulling the late hours to talk with them because that's when they get into the offices around 6 p.m. on Pacific time. But we found out some interesting things, through closed beta when we were, first putting the game in and making a lot of translations and really learning the game on our end to getting feedback from folks and from ourselves and trying to make some changes to the game. And one of the things that we're really excited about that we're seeing in a change, and we're seeing RuneWaker take our feedback and actually do something with, is with the number of dragons that people can collect. A lot of folks are saying, hey, hundreds of different types of dragons in the game. Well, I don't want just 12. I want to keep them all. Even if I'm not using those dragons anymore, what can I do with it? And this is something that we had talked about probably a month ago with RuneWaker. And we just got our new build next week for an update. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that update. But to kind of finish this story, one of the things that's going to be in the update next week when we bring it live is actually, we call it a dragon chamber. And it's another basically inventory section where you can put all dragons that you're not currently equipped or not currently in your dragon stable. So almost an unlimited number, well, maybe not unlimited, but probably an extra 50 or so slots, I think maybe more than that.
Yeah, I've seen over 100 on it.
Okay. So over 100 new slots for where you can put dragons that you've captured. So the cool thing is right now you can actually save all those dragons that you've captured, and you can take them back out and put them in your stable when you're in town and bring them back to fight if you want later on.
That sounds great.
It's just something very different. It's something players have been asking for. It's kind of almost like the Pokemon aspect of, hey, now if you want to collect every type of dragon, you can go out there and start doing it.
Do you guys know how much SC that's going to cost the player to open that up, or is it going to be like you're going to get a certain amount free to start with, or is that going to be a premium feature out the?
It'll work very similar to how the dragon slots work right now. You'll get the first row or 2 free, and then the other ones will cost. We're looking right now about 50 cents to start for each row, and then after several rows of that, bumping it up to like $1 if you want. Again, because it's not a requirement. Everything we charge for station cash, we try to do our best to make sure that it's nothing that's absolutely required to play the game. But it's a convenience for you to do more of the fun things in game.
No, I understand.
But yeah, that's probably how it'll work. So to go along with your original question of what else is new, so next week we're going to be introducing a new zone to the game, and the zone's called Wintertide, and we're actually going to be increasing the level cap. So from right now, the level cap is 60 in Dragon's Prophet, and we're going to be increasing it to level 70. Wintertide is a winter-themed zone, a lot of snow, but there's a lot of lore and history there. Talking about the Second Great Dragon War, there's some giant, dead dragons, and I think we got a little sneak preview of this at E3. Just the way the environment looks. There's also going to be 3 new dungeons, and there's a lot of trolls and giants in Wintertide. There's a little bit of a storyline going on right now, how the trolls and giants are kind of at war with each other. So 3 new dungeons plus a 4th major instance where you'll be able to get in a larger group, and similar to what we're in right now, where there's mini bosses and bosses, and a full group will be able to play up to 4 difficulty levels. So a lot of fun new content for players.
Now, you mentioned larger groups. Is it going to be like a raid size instance, and how large would these larger groups be?
Oh, yeah, no, I'm sorry. It's just a larger dungeon for groups of up to 5 people.
Okay.
So there will be larger dungeons when we get close to launch, and we are in the process of working with RuneWaker right now on raid content. And for raid content, again, at launch later on this summer, we're looking somewhere around the teens to 20 player range for those instances. So that's what our raid content is looking at.
I think we found our first mini boss.
Yes, we've actually got one of the dragons here that you actually see a similar dragon. Actually, it might be the exact same dragon, the Bloodwing dragon, in one of the starting areas. And now he's come back, and he's a pretty cool looking dragon.
I'm very happy about this. Now, I'm going to assume that this guy is not tameable.
That is correct.
All right.
He is part of the Doom Dragons, and he's basically part of the evil side.
Okay, so those are the only untamable dragons, I guess, in the game, are the Doom Dragons, because I guess it doesn't really make sense that the evil ones would not have anything to do with you.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, he would be a very awesome pet to have, though, wouldn't he?
Yeah, he would. I think I asked, I can't remember if it was in this one or the previous one, you're talking to RuneWaker about things that you want to see get added into the game, but how is the relationship as far as things that are already in the game? Because I know one of the concerns that Bill brought up in his review that he did was the leveling. There's so many things inside this game that set it apart from traditional MMOs, but then it seems like in the very early levels it's a kind of a slow go kill this, go kill that, and it just gets to see traditional MMO questing, kill things at hubs, progress, and it just takes too long to get to what is really interesting and fun in this game. Do you guys have any plans to speed that early leveling curve up to where it doesn't feel as grindy, or are you guys kind of satisfied with where it is right now?
Well, it's actually ironic that you mentioned it, because last week, let me think about this, last week or the week before, I can't remember, we were on a conference call. So we also work fairly closely with RuneWaker and also the European publisher, Infernum. And we do conference calls every other week. And one of the things we actually talked about was not a huge change, but increasing the experience that's gained in levels 1 through 30. So kind of getting the player to level 30 faster. And then, doing some tweaks after level 30 to make sure that, players aren't getting to level 60 quite so fast. So maybe, increasing your fun to get to level 30, but then slowing it down a little bit at level 30, if that makes sense.
Okay.
And part of it's for what you're saying, so you can start getting more into the higher level dragons, more into crafting, where crafting really helps a lot. But a lot of the fun mechanics of the game, you really do get in right away. I mean, like, you can capture a dragon at level 5 when you enter the world and kind of leave the tutorial part of it. You can get into crafting right away. So we've taken feedback, and we definitely want to tweak things, and I understand your guys' thoughts on it. It's definitely a traditional MMO, and how the quests operate and how the NPCs are in the world. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. So you want to speed the curve up at the early levels and then flatten it out once you get past the 30 to the 60 content.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And, not really even slow it a lot, but just, take a look at it again and make sure that it feels like it's right. But definitely one of the things we did talk about, and RuneWaker is actually working on right now, is increasing the experience, that you gain, and figuring out, making sure that it still feels right and it still flows right. But we have gotten a little bit of feedback about how, if you follow the quest, you can kind of get ahead of yourself a little bit. So we want to make sure that that doesn't happen.
How do you guys feel that you're doing? Well, how are you guys doing with the localization process? I mean, how much longer do you think it's going to take you to kind of get everything to where you want it to be a release state as opposed to just being in the open beta?
Well, that's a constant, ongoing thing. I mean, every time that Rune Waker makes changes, they make changes in Chinese.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever we have new content, like the Wintertide stuff that we're doing right now, we're making changes. There's even a few dungeons in the main game right now where there's a couple NPCs here and there. So we have our tool system, and we use the tools that we've been given to go and find strings that need translations. But every once in a while, the actual designers over in Taiwan, will add strings but won't put them in the right spot for the tool. And so we actually, by using the tool, we'll miss those strings. So as we play through the game and our QA group plays through and our customers go and play through and report bugs to us, we're still occasionally finding things like, hey, you didn't get this translated. It's like, oh yeah, you're right, because we didn't see that string was there. So sometimes the only way to do it is actually run around and check everything in the game itself. I would say we're 99% done with the base game, but as we get new content or make changes to existing content, like adding the Dragon Chamber and the Dragon Sanctuary, it's still an ongoing thing. It probably always will be a little bit ongoing.
No, I understand that. You had talked about in the content update coming out next week that the level cap is going to increase to 70.
Right.
What's the current level cap in Taiwan for Rune Waker's version? And do you guys plan on getting there pretty much the same time when you guys want this to be released?
Yeah, they just updated the Wintertide stuff on June 27th. So we're only a couple weeks behind them.
Okay.
So they're at level 70 right now, but up until just 2 weeks ago, they were at level 60 also.
Gotcha. So it's not like there's a 6-month delay.
Oh, right. No, not at all. In fact, we all went into open beta within 3 weeks of each other. They were 3 or 4 weeks ahead of us on open beta, and then again, with launches, we plan to do the same thing. We plan to get that content. Some of the things we're looking for launch, and I hope I'm not jumping ahead of myself, but the raid content we talked about, as well as some pretty cool stuff with the frontier system and capturing citadels and stuff like that. And so we've been talking about when we're going to get the first pass of that, when they're going to release it, and then we plan to release within 2 to 3 weeks after them. So it puts a lot of stress on Merv and his folks over in International to make sure we get those translations quickly.
Yeah. What about a tutorial system at the lower end for some of the different systems you have? I kind of mentioned this earlier. I think you guys have a lot of good spin on traditional systems to kind of make them unique to this game, but some of them are so different enough that people won't necessarily understand all the finer points unless they pick it up on a wiki, or if there's a tutorial in the game to tell them. Like,
right.
You can earn affinity through your friends through gifting in the game, and what's the perks and advantages to that? And that's something that I don't even think people would notice for a while they're playing through the game, unless someone told them, or something kind of popped up and said, hey, did you know you could do this, and gave a little explanation of it.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right, and there's quite a few things like that. I mean, there's so many. The game is a lot deeper than it seems on the surface, I think is what you're saying, because that's totally how we feel as well.
Absolutely, I think it's a lot deeper, and I think it's a lot of those systems people just don't even notice because there's not the tutorial. And again, it is in a beta form still. I just hope that we kind of see those as the game progresses on, because that's really, I think, what's going to keep the people in the game,
right.
Those unique features.
Right. Yeah.
And they might be missing them now.
Right. The same thing with the guild. Like, if you're going through and playing the game, it's certainly easy to play through solo, and you wouldn't even know about the fact that you can join a guild and they level up and they give you these flutes that allow you to summon rare dragons. And right. That is a good point. It's something that we've kind of brought up in the past with Rune Waker, and their focus right now is trying to get all of the content in that we feel we need to launch the game. Right now it's missing a lot of that end game content. Right now you hit level 60 and it's kind of like, hey, what do I do now? So we want to get that raid content, the housing area, the citadel functionality where there's PvP and capturing stuff with guilds, as well as we're adding content as much as possible while we're doing that, like the Wintertide, and adding the Dragon Chambers where you can collect up to over 100 dragons now. That's definitely, I totally agree with you. One of the areas that it would really be helpful is to have a little bit more pop-up tutorials, not necessarily an instance. We don't need to extend that any further, but
No, absolutely not. That's not what I was talking about. Just like
Yeah,
the
yeah.
tool tips that pop up to explain it to you.
yeah, no, I agree. That's one of the things we need to do, and we don't have plans for additional stuff on that right now, but we definitely agree that it is a good area, and we'll continue to work with Wind Waker on doing stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. There's a lot of really cool features about the game that you're just going to miss if you're a casual player playing by yourself.
Yeah. Like, I just picked up a dragon shard. It's a pure dragon shard of physical defense.
Right.
What do I do with it?
Exactly. Yeah, and that's one of the things you can use to go in some of the UI that's in the game on the top. When you hit escape, you can do some really cool things with the basic enhancement of your. So when I think it's the cross swords with the there you go, with the blue diamond on top of it, or you can just hit the Y key and brings it up. And there's a lot of different things you can do to make your weapons better, but you really don't know that unless you go and explore the UI, the interface.
And there's 3 different types of currencies here. There's money that you earn in game from playing. There are the dragon insignias, which look like seashells, which you get from completing daily quests. And there's station cash, which you can buy for real cash.
That's
and
right.
you can use either one of those to increase the percentage chance of getting a better enhancement, or actually, like, let's see, do I have here that I can enhance?
Right, to enhance your weapon, you can take the shard like you found, and you can each piece of equipment has a certain amount of points, shard points that it'll allow you to attach to the weapon. So when you find shards like that, you can pull an item in there or a weapon in there, and add shards to it to basically give you more stats. Like intelligence or charisma or strength and that type of thing. And so that kind of allows you really to customize all your gear the way you want it to, and then of course you can enhance it, make your items have more damage, take more damage, more durability. So yeah, all kinds of different things. And that's another, to your point, that's another thing that we really don't call out. You just kind of have to explore through the UI and find out all the cool things.
Yeah. Like attribute switch. I mean, there's, like I said, and this is one of the things I stress with Bill too, is that the game has so many levels to it that I don't think a lot of people really get into, because you've got to figure them out for yourself or through a wiki, and there is a certain type of player who will do that, but then there's others that are like, what's this material refinement? Because like I'll sit here and all my crafting skills are the same level as my character, except material refinement. But I don't think you level that like you do the rest of them, even though it's on the same tab. You get like a base material, and this will create a refinement that you can use to attach things to your gear.
Yeah, the material refinement tab isn't a traditional trade skill like the other 6 tabs. Basically what you do is you create something called a synthesis, and then you use that synthesis during a crafting process when you're completing a recipe, and it gives you a higher chance to produce a blue or a purple item.
Okay, so
similar to a catalyst.
Gotcha. So instead of just adding on the catalyst here, you can add a synthesis item down here, and that will increase the chance of creating a higher quality item. Okay. Because
exactly.
I've personally made a number of purples for my guy just because I enjoy the crafting system, and I've dug through that one, but there are still other things where I'm like, what exactly does that do?
Yeah, I actually felt the same way. So, I mean, of course, since we're not the developers of the game, when we first got the game, months ago, we had to jump in and kind of figure a lot of this out for ourselves. And it was the same. We were like, geez, I never knew you could do that, Yeah. So it makes it fun, but also crazy.
No,
so, hey, real quick, what we're encountering here is, if you did play through the tutorial, you remember Wenda, who is like kind of one of the lead evil characters in the game. In this zone, she's actually one of the main bosses as well. So if you recognize her and this dragon we're going to encounter, that's where you've seen her before.
She took a staff and punted me off an island.
That's right, off the cliff, yeah.
Yep, I remember her well.
Yes, little vengeance.
Exactly.
And that's another thing. There is some really good storyline. If you dig deep enough into the game, some of the quests, whoa, awesome. She just picked Merv up and is carrying him around now on this dragon. He's flying around up there.
Well, at least his floating dragon's helping.
Yeah.
Merv, get back in the fight.
Yeah, and now he actually is dropped onto another island, so he has to find his way back to fight with you. This is one of the really cool encounters, why we wanted to show you this area.
That is an interesting mechanic.
Yeah.
I'm flying back now.
Yeah.
I see ya. Of note, you can gear and armor your dragons as well, not just your character.
That's right. Yeah, and a lot of that is done through crafting, and sometimes when you fight bosses like this, you'll find gear for your dragons as well.
Mm-hmm.
And you can tint your gear. I mean, the whole tinting system's another level of complexity, but you can actually unlock colors and tint gear, tint your own gear, your dragon's gear.
Yeah. Now, I have noticed that when I was looking at my character here, fortunately, you didn't spend my attributes for me, so is there any plans, or because I think I've seen things about the charisma issue. Where's that headed?
Yeah, well, so part of our thing next week is we're going to, again, since we're still in beta, we feel okay doing this, but we're going to actually reset everyone's attribute points next week because we made a few changes to that. So I think what you're talking about is a lot of people are putting their attribute points into charisma because it has such a strong effect on
Taming dragons, yeah.
Taming dragons and keeping dragons in combat. And so one of the other things that Rune Waker let us know they're doing is they're going to be adding a lot of charisma stats to gear.
Okay.
So that you'll be able to find more gear with charisma on it, and therefore, still be able to keep your charisma high, yet use your attribute points to go more into like strength or intelligence or ferocity. So we're going to see how that goes, and then see if we need to make another change before we hit launch.
Okay.
So, but yeah, definitely, we've gotten the feedback from players as well that seems like charisma is the best thing to do, and therefore everyone's kind of doing the same thing, and not really customizing your character the way we wanted players to do it. So.
Yeah, charisma was such a great stat to have. I mean, if you wanted to tame a dragon and you were stacked charisma, you got it, and then it's like, wow, that dragon's out for like 2 hours. I don't have to summon another one. That's wonderful. So it looks like we did. That was the end of this zone. I just got in a cursed tower. Did the bus driver switch zones on us?
Yeah, bus driver's stopping at a cursed tower, so you can take that port, and then we'll just start playing through there. It's another zone that's similar to Juno Crystal Gallery. This is the ending story dungeon of Wanadia, the level 40 to 50 zone.
Yeah, so bear with us. We load through this zone. Yeah, so kind of going on your point of, we have actually made quite a few changes through closed beta and open beta about how dragons are captured, and then how you actually pull them out. When we first started closed beta, you would summon your dragon, and the yellow bar at the top would tick down. And so if you were fighting with a dragon and then encountered another one you wanted to tame, you couldn't do it because your yellow bar was ticking down while the dragon was out, and then you had to wait for that to come back up before you could tame a dragon. So it was really frustrating to the players. So we made a change with that somewhere right around the end of closed beta, I believe. And now actually when your dragon's out, they time down differently, but the yellow bar is just for using your casting spells. So we've made a lot of progress in how you summon dragons, how you capture them, how you keep them out, and hopefully this change with adding more charisma to stats and trying to figure it out, we want to allow players to still maximize their dragon time, their dragon fighting time, yet still feel like they can customize the character the way they want. So we'll hopefully figure it out by launch.
Sounds great. What about housing? How do you guys feel about that? Do you like where it's at? You got any changes planned between now and release, or?
Well, we've heard a lot of complaints that prices are too much. So in our update, just this past week, I believe, we lowered prices a bit. Not a ton, but we lowered them fairly significantly because a lot of players were saying that it was still too expensive to buy houses. So again, that's something that we're going to keep an eye on and tweak as we go through the next few months of open beta, and hope to have nailed down by launch. Because when we do hit launch, housing is going to become even more important because that's when we're going to have the Citadel effect and a lot of guild PvP going on and capturing and stuff. So the housing stuff itself is neat. It's not a requirement in playing the game. But it is a fun thing, especially because it's cross-server and everyone's there together, and so it's coming along.
That's actually not even where I was trying to go with that one. I guess for me, it seemed like housing was something more that was a very high level thing to do, and it's like you got to get to 60. Now I could be wrong there, so please correct me if I am. Before you could really start participating in housing.
Well, you don't have to be level 60. I think level 30 you can get up to the housing, but
can you?
Right. I'm sorry. Say that again.
I was asking you. It's level 30 when you can first starting to deal with housing stuff. Okay.
Right, when you can teleport there. However, at this point, because of the pricing for housing, a lot of players aren't able to actually save enough gold to purchase a housing lot in the house. And, they've been buying apartments, which is the instance version of housing when you go up to the areas. But one of the other cool things I think a lot of players haven't discovered is that you can hop from housing island to housing island, but it's like a chain of islands. You go from the first one, then to the second one, to the third one in a linear progression. And I think, again, that's one of the other systems that isn't explained very well with the game.
Mm-hmm.
And so something that we want to work on and kind of show a little more that, hey, if you want to check out a different environment for the housing, different layout, you keep using the portals that are there. There's a couple portals on each island, and you hop to housing further on. And as players are getting up to level 60 and starting to experiment with housing, they're finding this out and talking to each other about it.
Yeah, that's one of the things I haven't actually done yet in the game, but I do have a house because I may have bought one of the Dragon Lord packs back in the pre-order. So I have a house. I just don't have a place to put my house yet.
Right, because you got to buy a housing lot, yeah. Right.
So.
And that's one of the other things we've talked about. We've when we first introduced housing a while back, and then we took it off. In closed beta, we had housing up for a little bit, and then we took it down. And it's because there weren't enough large housing lots, and so we've actually, and now in open beta, we've added more larger housing lots. So still not enough for some players' taste, but there's definitely more of them. So you have to look on that first island. If it's not there, go to the next couple islands and see what you can find. And then all the islands are PvP as well, and everyone has their own opinion about PvP. We think it's kind of fun because it's different. You don't have to be up here, so PvP is not a requirement, but it adds another element of gameplay. And PvP is actually pretty fun with different character classes and dragons and stuff.
That was actually where I was going to go with next. The PvP is the housing, and I guess the only places it's going to be available right now is the housing and the frontier system.
That's correct.
Is that something we'll go into, the frontier system, and how that's going to play into it?
Yeah, sure. So each island in the frontier system where there's housing has a citadel, which is kind of like a big castle. There's nothing populated on those right now, but this is one of the things that's in progress at Runewaker, and that is to basically put NPCs there and make it something that you, with your guild, you have to go and capture. The plan is when you capture the citadel, after a certain amount of time elapses, then the citadel becomes yours, and you now can control the taxation for the island. So, every house has to pay rent. Well, the guild will be able to control what that rent is, and then, so it's kind of neat, like the island belongs to them, and of course if the players there are unhappy or another guild is there and wants to take it over, then you will battle each other for control of that citadel. What we're debating right now with Runewaker is whether that citadel actually stays there in the open world, or if it's more of an instance, like you go to that area and then an instance is kind of persistent instance has popped up. We're trying to figure that out based on how many players we think are going to be there. So the mechanics aren't completely worked out, but the concept is a lot of PvP action and a little bit of political maneuvering for controlling the island and figuring out who wants to live on what island and that kind of stuff.
Okay. You want to tell us real quickly about this instance that we're in right now? It's obviously a completely different environment than the last one we were at. The last one seemed to be an open air or like a valley canyon kind of deal, whereas this one is clearly inside of a building and full of undead and treasure robbers.
I'm going to let Merv tell you about this. He knows a lot about this dungeon.
Sure. So a Cursed Tower is, like I said, the final story dungeon at the end of Winadia. And the player's been playing through the story quest line in Winadia, and they've been working with a legendary dragon by the name of Warthorn. And Warthorn's pretty much the god of prophecy and Dragon's Prophet. And this is his old temple that we're in right now, and we're basically Bosha, who's one of the Chief Osira. He's instructed us to come here and retrieve Warthorn's memory. So we're going through his old home, basically, and it's been taken over by these kind of crazed researchers and these undead. These creatures are actually from an organization called the Eye of Logath, and they were researchers who tried to do the same thing that we're doing now in the past. But because the temple's kind of corrupted and is in a bad place, they've fallen into it and are now part of its environment. So we're basically trying to fight through the end and hopefully encounter Warthorn and retrieve his memory for Sabosha.
You said hopefully we're going to find him. Are you concerned that the undead are going to kill us on the way there, or that is he like a random chance to just not be there?
You know, I've been through it a lot, and he's definitely at the end. And for players who haven't made it all the way through, it's kind of neat because you actually get to fight Kronos, who is the big purple devouring dragon, who's kind of the prime antagonist of the game. And there's kind of a neat cutscene where he's fighting Warthorn, and then it's basically a glimpse of the past, and you fight Kronos and retrieve Warthorn's memory. And that pretty much completes the storyline for Zone 5.
All right.
Spoiler alert.
I was going to say, not to give away any spoilers, but with the new zone that's coming in and an increase in level cap, is there going to be a new story that goes along with it? Is it going to be like a branch off of this, something maybe completely new, or is it going to be a continuation?
Absolutely. Every zone kind of has its own contained storyline that ultimately plays into the plot of the game. Zone 7, Wintertide, introduces a story dungeon called Iron Fang Citadel, and it's basically an ancient Osiran keep that was taken over by frost giants. And the player will go through the storyline there and encounter some of the frost giant antagonists. And I don't want to give away too much of the story, but it's basically another story dungeon like this one. In the game currently, at the end of Core Hollow, which is the 50 to 60 zone, there's a story dungeon called Dunar Temple, and that also continues the storyline for the zone for Core Hollow.
That sounds great. How much longer do we have to find this guy, or because I don't?
Yeah, so we're actually up to the first boss right now, and there's 5 bosses in this zone, so
yeah.
kind of a long way to go. But I just kind of wanted to show, since we finished Juno Crystal Gallery, just another one of the story dungeons, and show the drastically different world and just kind of how the dungeon looks different.
That's great. I wouldn't want to totally spoil this the pinnacle dungeon of the story quest for anybody anyway, so we probably don't want to show the last encounter. But
we'll fight this first boss, and then we can head out and head back to a town or look for capturing some dragons or something if you'd like.
That sounds great. Why don't we take a look at? I guess we don't have to take a look at the coolest dragon to be. Why don't you show us one of the legendary dragons that? I guess the legendary dragons are capturable if you have enough charisma, right?
Yeah, absolutely. They're pretty much called. Players refer to them as ancient dragons.
Ancient.
We call them fabled dragons. We're actually using one of them right now. This guy that's out currently fighting this boss here is Onyx Smoke. There's probably about, I'd say, over a dozen ancient dragons in the game now. We're planning on releasing 2 new ones with Wintertide, and players are really looking forward to that. So I'll be happy to show a couple other ones off after this boss if you'd like. Or...
Okay.
Yeah. Get out maybe in a brighter environment. Like I said, Merv is the master of lore and story. And part of that's because what his role is at SOE is he's a project manager for our international group. And so whenever, like I was telling you, when Rune Waker provides us with new content, they first send over the text, the strings for the game before we actually get the gameplay itself. And so Merv's in there reading all the translated storylines and quests, and he knows more about this game than anyone else here at SOE. So it's really good that we got him as our bus driver today.
Well, thanks, Merv.
Yeah,
Appreciate
no problem. Yeah, the story's actually pretty deep in the game. Unfortunately, it's a lot of reading and not too many, cool cutscenes. But the lore is there for people who want to seek it out, and some of it's pretty unique and entertaining, I think.
My mantra is stop and read the quest text.
Yeah, mine is too, actually, and I actually enjoy a lot of it in the game.
So it looks like this guy's almost done, and we'll pop over to another zone and look at some of the ancient dragons.
Sounds great. So, Todd, what are you most excited for over the coming months to work on in Dragon's Prophet before you guys actually go live?
Well, the one thing I'm really excited about that I see now is I'm really excited about the Dragon Chamber, and I think everyone will really enjoy that next week because I've collected well over several dozen dragons. Because part of what you do in the field training is find that right dragon and then get a bunch of dragons and transfer skills over. And I think Merv and I have both spent, countless hours, training our dragons and trying to get those right skills. So I really think it's going to be awesome to be able to save all the different types of dragons that I've collected over, over the gameplay. So that'll be pretty cool. But then after next week, the thing that I'm really looking forward to is the Citadel functionality. Because, we've seen raids before. A lot of MMOs have raids. And while it's really cool and I'm really excited about the gear, getting the PvP, the guild against guild, and capturing a Citadel and seeing how that plays out with, taxation, and that's something fairly unique. So I'm really interested in working with Runeawaker, and we've already had multiple conversations, like I was saying, we debated the other week on our call, like, should we make it instance so that, we can limit the number of people there and control, how the frame rate works, or should we make it open world, because then anyone can join in at any time, and, that whole debate that's a lot of fun of game development.
What about you, Merv? What are you looking forward to most over the coming months until release?
I have to say that the main thing I'm looking forward to is the Overlord system. On Live, I play a lot, and I actually have a guild, so I'm looking forward to how taking over that Citadel actually works, and it kind of gives a purpose to having your guild and giving you an objective. So I'm really looking forward to see how that plays out.
And of course, staying online at all hours of the night to make sure no one attacks your guild while everyone else is sleeping, right? Got to see how that plays out.
Well, since you're not region blocked, you need to get some EU guys in your guild.
That's right. That's right.
And they get some Australians, and then you should be good.
Exactly. Do you remember the days of Ultima Online?
Yes.
When you would have to, have someone in your house at all hours, and so, I go back to, well, that was well over a dozen years ago, but this is something kind of cool that I haven't really seen since then. So we're hoping it works out well.
It's still around. I don't know that people are getting house jacked in the middle of the night as much as they used to be, though. But it's still alive and kicking.
Yeah. Well, hopefully they'll come over here and try this out.
Yeah.
You want to summon him? So we're going to summon you. We went to another area here, and we're gonna summon you, and I think Merv's gonna take us to a couple cool dragons.
Okay.
How are we doing on time? Are we okay? Are we running out of time?
No, we're fine.
Okay.
We're good. I figured we take a look at a couple of these dragons, and if there's anything else we want to show off, we can do that. If not, we can look at the dragons, and you guys can do whatever it is you guys do in California.
Well, it's still sunny here, so.
Yeah.
No, I think as long as everyone's familiar with the basic gameplay, going to the dragon lair is always something that I like to show off, just because that's where you can do a lot of the additional, like we've shown how the dragons can fight with you, and we can show dragon capturing here. Hopefully, if we can run into a couple cool ones. I think we're going to summon a couple dragons too.
So I basically loaded 2 dragons that are player favorites right now.
Okay.
This one is called Midnight Shade, and he's an ancient dragon that's from the Wanadia area. It's kind of cool. Basically, from the player's perspective, they're kind of traveling around the zone, and maybe they'll see a shadow flying overhead. And you can look up, and it's this guy, and he's actually much stronger than the area that he flies in. So generally, you'll see a good number of players kind of chasing him around, kind of shouting that he's up, and then hopefully, someone who's able to capture him will get him. He's definitely not easy to capture. If you don't want to find him in the world, you can actually, if you're a member of a guild, you can use one of your draconic flutes, and you have a chance of summoning ancient dragons with a rare or epic quality flute. So then this is another dragon, Cobalt Lightning. He's my favorite.
Yes. And the cool thing is when you do capture these dragons, you actually get a title as well, right?
You do.
Which has additional stat points that stack onto your character as well, though.
Yep.
Yeah, that's another one of those systems that's kind of a little bit cryptic, but when you equip the title, it gives you stats, and then you can find items in the game that are called title promoters.
Yes.
And you can actually level up your title.
Very confusing the first time I found one of those. It said title promoter, and I'm like, okay, I got a title promoter. Cool. How do I use this? And I was like, title, what? It's like, is this broken? And then I was like, oh, I guess I can use it to increase the stats on my title. And I was like, but I don't know how to use it. So I figured out what it did. I just couldn't figure out how to make it work.
Oh, okay. Well, if you go into your, if you open up your character screen, and then the bottom tab down there has all of the titles that you've earned on the character.
Mm-hmm.
And so then you equip the title, and then you actually, on the bottom, there's a button that says Use Item.
There we go.
And so then you use that item, and then your stats will increase for that title. Again, yeah, it is a little cryptic, but it's like one of those little Easter eggs, and when you find it and you figure it out, you're like, oh my god, this is so great.
It's also the achievement system to where you actually earn rewards by completing the achievements, especially the ones that are time limits because they reset.
Right.
And you get, the hammers so you can repair your stuff. This one's a transportation rune. So it's nice to see that you can get something for the achievements other than just achievement points.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and again, there's quite a few currencies in the game as well,
Yeah.
and how your kinsmen, kindred points, and what you do with those in the kindred wheel,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what we were talking about earlier about when you have friends and you create bonds with those friends and you earn points based on those friendships and experiences. There's a lot of cool things that you can do.
So let's talk about that for a few minutes if you don't mind, the kindred wheel.
Yeah.
So what is the benefit of building affinity between yourself and someone else through the kindred wheel? Let's see if I can find it on my...
So there's a couple different benefits you get for having friends in general. When you group with your friends, you actually...
Can you help them pull it up?
Oh yeah, if you hit O, the hotkey O, that'll bring up your friends list, and then you can see the kindred compass and...
On the top, towards the top, on the right side, there's like a little circle,
Mm-hmm.
and that brings up the kindred compass.
Yeah, so basically when you're grouped with your friends, you earn friendliness rating, and as that rating increases, you attain different titles with them. So if I have 3,000 friendliness rating with you, our relationship status will be called friend, and then when we group with each other, we receive 1% experience bonus, and that benefit evolves as our friendliness level increases. The top level, which is very hard to get, will give us a 5% experience bonus and a 3% drop rate whenever we group together. In addition to that, once we attain the friend level, any creature that you kill that's equal or greater level than your character will earn me 1 point on my friendship points at the top of the O window. And when that hits 1,000, I basically can claim a gift pack that will give me kindred insignias, and then those insignias can be spent on spinning this wheel. A lot of the items on the wheel are actually kind of neat because some of these are only purchasable with station cash, so we give players the chance to win them through the friendship system without having to spend station cash on them.
Somebody go write a wiki page on that one.
Well,
Does Amy do the wikis, or who's doing the wikis?
Yeah, well, the public does the wiki.
Yeah.
We support them on it, but yeah, I'm sure there's wiki information on it.
So
this kind of brings up another point that I know we were hoping to talk about, and that is population and finding people in the game.
Mm-hmm.
And when we went into open beta, we opened up channels. So on each server, so on Kronos, for each zone, there's multiple channels.
Mm-hmm.
And as players have progressed and then left those zones, we still have the number of channels. And what we've discovered is that RuneWaker set up the code so that it would randomly populate all of the channels that we have open. So we found even with less people, they're still being spread out across all the channels. So when you go back to the earlier zones right now, it's a little more difficult to find people. So what we're talking with RuneWaker about before we get to launch is seeing if they can change the code so that it dynamically populates the first channel, and then when that channel fills up, then start populating the next channel. And that way it'll allow players to find each other more easily and group up and become friends and utilize these systems. So our other option is just to shut down channels on a continuous basis, which is a little more labor intensive on our operations group here and bringing the server up and down. So we're really hoping, do you know what I'm saying? Are you following me on the channels?
Yeah, absolutely. I noticed that when I was playing that there would be like 12 channels of the starter area, and I was kind of like, well, yeah, there's quite a few people here right now, but is there 12 channels worth of people here?
Right.
So yeah, I got you. Dynamically load the first few channels beforehand, instead of just, round robin putting people through 1 through 12 and dispersing the population out like that.
Right, and if you happen to come in when there's a lot of people playing, then you put on one of the other channels right now.
Mm-hmm.
randomly in channel 8, well then the game also puts you back in, when you come back in the game, it tries to remember which channel you were in last and puts you in that same channel. So it's kind of it's not working out the way we want to right now. So that's one of the other things. And again, it's good that we're in open beta. We're trying to figure these things out and trying to use these systems that Merv was explaining. And so that's one of the things we're working on, is trying to get people together more to make the game a little more social by the time we launch.
Awesome. I noticed that I ran headlong into a train, and I was trying to see if I'd clip with it, and I did. I actually ended up standing on top of the train and then riding it to its destination. What's this train?
So the train actually travels from Winadia in Lilia City, and it goes all the way through Winadia, and it brings the player to Korhala, which is the zone that we're in. And
Okay.
it's basically just kind of like a public transportation system. I personally never use it because I prefer flying on my dragon, but it's faster than dragons, and if you like that train kind of thing, it can take you all the way to Wintertide. This train right now stops in the far north of this zone at a town called Serdar, but when Wintertide releases, that's the way players will travel to it. They'll actually jump on the train at Serdar and follow it to the north to the frozen continent.
That's cool. So you heard it here first. This is how you're going to get there. Take
That's
the train.
right. We're making you ride the train for a change.
Get your ticket now. So,
and then we'll bring Merv back, and he'll be the train driver.
all right. As the game progresses, what we haven't talked about yet is the marketplace. What kind of items are you going to see being added into the market as we go forward?
Well, we introduced a couple new items last week. We had one new outfit, and then we also had a powder for using your loots. So we're looking at primarily cosmetic items. We do have several functional items in the marketplace. Like buying teleportation runes and things like that, resurrection runes. But we're not heavily focused on the marketplace too much. Again, the idea is we want players to be able to enjoy the game without having. Now you can buy things in the marketplace without spending station cash.
I would like to point out that I'm actually wearing the new cosmetic suit.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. Can you open that up real quick, the marketplace? Yeah, so the focus on the marketplace is really secondary to us. We want to make sure that the gameplay is fun. We want to make sure that we have the end game content, and that players are looking at all of the systems that we put in the game. And then the marketplace is there as like, hey, here's some extra cool stuff if you want. Obviously, experience baubles are a pretty well-received equipment. The merchant, the summonable merchant, like the merchant flute, and the bank and that kind of stuff that you can take with you is fairly popular.
I would guess that a lot of the items that are coming in the store are going to be related to some of the new mechanics that come out. So it's potential that when the Dragon Sanctuary comes out, there might be something that allows the player more convenience when you're interacting with that, or maybe even in the Frontier system. But in general, it's a lot of just cosmetic items, different armor sets.
Yeah, that's true. We don't know what items might be available when we get to the Frontier system and the Lord system.
Where are you, Merv? I bought you a puppet.
Nice.
So we can get 1,000 points of friendship, and that way we could have earned more experience this entire time.
I actually don't think you can trade it to me. You have to gift it to me through your friend window.
Oh.
So if you hit O and then right-click my name,
Yeah.
there's a send gift.
Send gift.
Yeah, and I'll send you a puppet too.
There you go. Puppet sent.
You guys are so cute. Send each other little puppets. I like that.
Oh, I got a gift. Where's it at? Is it in my backpack?
No, it actually just auto-consumes it. So if you mouse over my name now, you'll see that our friendliness rating has increased.
3,000.
3K. So we're on our way to being BFFs.
We cranked it up to 11, ladies and gentlemen.
That's awesome.
Best friends for life. All right.
But so yeah, I mean that's really it. The big thing coming out next week for everyone to take a look at is Wintertide, with the level cap and a lot more storyline, some new dungeons, and then the real cool thing in my opinion is the Dragon Sanctuary if you're in a guild, and the Dragon Chamber for those of you who are big dragon collectors. There's now a place to put a lot more dragons.
Sounds great. Well, game's Dragon's Prophet. It's an open beta. Can you give us a time frame on when we can expect it to be not an open beta anymore?
We're going to be announcing that at SOE Live. So
Oh,
I
okay.
can tell you that in 1 month we'll give you a launch date. It'll definitely be in the next few months.
All right, sounds good. So we can expect it this year as opposed to next.
Oh yeah, definitely this year before we get too far into the holiday season for sure.
All right, sounds great. Well, I appreciate your time, and thanks for coming out.
All right, well thanks for having us, and we appreciate it as well.
Yeah, thanks. It was great.